How many times can you take a practice test before?
As many times as you like.
Okay.
And you should take the practice test until you have all of the questions answered correctly. And each practice test may have different questions, but they will also have some of the same questions. Okay, we are recording, and this is Medicare plus Fraud, Waste, and Abuse. Module 3 is what we're going to do tonight. You all, I'm going to share my screen so that you're able to actually see what I am telling you. So, everybody ready? Buckle your seatbelts. We're going to start this journey. Some carriers require that you do Ahip. Some do not require that you do Ahip. You have to, of course, have an Ahip account. You have to log into it. So this first page is something that you're always going to see when you come back to Ahip. We're doing 2025 Ahip. We've completed Module 1, Module 2. Tonight is Wednesday, July 3rd, and we're doing Module 3. So, in Module 3, you're going to learn and be able to explain the types of Part D plans, including standalone prescription drug plans and Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans. Understand Medicare Part D eligibility rules, identify Medicare beneficiaries who may enroll in standalone prescription drug plans, obtain basic information about drug formularies and the use of tiering in benefit structures, review what drugs are covered under Part B and what drugs are not covered, learn about the Part D standard and alternative benefits, list standard benefit out-of-pocket costs, including deductibles and cost sharing for both generic and brand name drugs. We will explain the term TROOP, true out-of-pocket costs, and what counts towards the TROOP. We will describe what happens once the Part D beneficiary outlays reaches the catastrophic limits. You'll gain knowledge about pharmacy networks and their role in the Part D program. You'll be able to explain Part D premiums and way to pay these premiums. You'll be able to identify the role and amount of Part D late enrollment penalties. Learn about the Part D drug management tools and formulary requirements. Identify enrollee rights under Part D, including the right to request coverage of drugs that are not on a plan's formulary, as well as the appeals process. You'll learn how beneficiaries may file grievances about their Part D plans or pharmacies. Gain a basic understanding of Part D assistance programs for individuals with limited income and limited resources. Be able to explain how a pharmaceutical assistance program may provide sources of help for low-income individuals. Understand the importance of the meaning of credible coverage for those with employer or union prescription drug coverage. Learn about the interplay between Medicaid and Medicare regarding Part D coverage. Elimination of the coverage gap phase from the standard Part D benefit structure. The capping of beneficiary out-of-pocket costs at $2,000. And the new Medicare prescription payment plan. So in Module 3, as soon as my screen comes up, these are the navigation instructions that are on in each module as you begin the module. This is material that is copyrighted and belongs to Ahip. The learning objectives, there are 5 tonight: what Part D plans are and who is eligible to enroll. Part D standard and alternate benefits, management tools, covered drugs, and formulary requirements. Part D, true out-of-pocket costs and help for beneficiaries with limited income. Late enrollment penalties and premiums, and the new Medicare Prescription Payment Plan. So remember, there are some new things for 2025, and those are things you will definitely want to remember because there are changes. So we'll make note of those as we go along. The roadmap for Module 3, Medicare Part D Basics and Eligibility, Covered Drugs, Part D Standards and Alternative Benefits, True Out-of-Pocket Costs, Part D Premiums and Late Enrollment Penalties, Part D Drug Management Tools and Formulary Requirements, Part D Enrollee Rights, and Part D Assistance Programs. This is an overview of the changes for 2025. As part of the Inflation Reduction Act, Congress made several changes to the Part D program that will be implemented for the first time starting January 1, 2025, and are further addressed in this training. These changes include eliminating the coverage gap phase from the standard Part D benefit structure. So there is no donut hole starting January 1, 2025. Capping beneficiary out-of-pocket cost at $2,000. So when the beneficiary's prescription drug costs totals $2,000, there is no catastrophic phase. They're done. Adding a new program, the Medicare Prescription Payment Plan, that provides beneficiaries the option to pay their out-of-pocket Part D prescription drug costs in monthly amounts over the year instead of paying at the point of service. So those are the 3 changes. Those are the 3 things that you will need to remember that's changed. There is no coverage gap. The cap for beneficiary covered out-of-pocket costs is $2,000, and they may choose to pay that $2,000 in monthly amounts. The legislation also imposed certain requirements on drug manufacturers that may reduce the cost of Part D drugs. Medicare Part D Prescription Drug Plan Basics. Medicare Part D covers certain prescription drugs, diabetic supplies, and vaccines. Coverage of Medicare Part D benefits is provided only through private companies. There is no fee-for-service Part D benefit. All of the Medicare Part D benefits are based on the Medicare model. The types of Medicare plans that include Part D benefits are standalone prescription drug plans, Medicare Advantage prescription drug plans with prescription drugs. Those might be MAPDs, and those are the plans, the Medicare Advantage plans that have prescription drugs included. Cost prescription drug plans, those are cost plans that cover Part D prescriptions as an optional supplemental benefit. And then you have Medicare, Medicaid plans, and PACE plans. To be eligible for Part D, individuals must be entitled to Part A and or enrolled under Part B, not including enrollment in Part B solely for coverage of immunosuppressive drugs. And that would be someone who had a kidney transplant could still have Part B drugs covered under Medicare. A United States citizen or lawfully present in the United States on or before the enrollment effective date is someone who is eligible for a Part D plan. Individuals meeting the above criteria are generally eligible to obtain Part D benefits through any prescription drug plan offered in the area in which the individual permanently resides, depending on how they receive their Medicare benefits. Prescription drug benefits must enroll any eligible beneficiary who applies regardless of health status. To obtain Part D benefits from other types of Medicare health plans, such as an MAPD, a Medicare Medicaid plan, or a PACE plan, the individual will have to meet the additional eligibility criteria for those plans. For example, to enroll in a MAPD plan, individuals must be entitled to A and enrolled in Part B. Individuals' eligibility to enroll in a standalone prescription drug plan also depends on how they receive their medical benefits. Generally, only beneficiaries enrolled in original Medicare, a Medicare Advantage medical savings account, a private fee-for-service plan, or a cost plan may enroll in a standalone Part D plan to receive D benefits. Beneficiaries enrolled in an MSA may only obtain Part D benefits through a standalone prescription drug plan. Beneficiaries enrolled in a cost plan or a Medicare Advantage private fee-for-service plan may obtain Part D benefits through their plan if offered, or through a standalone prescription drug plan. Beneficiaries enrolled in a Medicare Advantage HMO or PPO may only obtain Part D benefits through the HMO or the PPO plan. In some cases, employer group plan enrollees may have additional choices. Individuals enrolled in a Medicare Medicaid plan or a PACE plan may only receive their Part D benefits through their plan. Ms. Fitzgerald meets an institutional equivalent level of care, but is living in an assisted living facility. Because of her need for intensive care management, her broker has suggested either an institutional equivalent Medicare Advantage special needs plan offered at her facility or a PACE plan. Ms. Fitzgerald asked whether she should also enroll in a prescription drug plan. Her agent correctly counsels her that all PACE plans and institutional extra SNP plans will include Part D benefits, and if she enrolls in either, she will be ineligible to enroll in a freestanding prescription drug plan. Mr. Bradley has Medicare fee-for-service with a prescription drug plan. The prescription drug plan offers excellent low-cost coverage for the prescription drugs Mr. Bradley takes, and he would like to remain enrolled in it. However, Mr. Bradley is interested in enrolling in a Medicare Advantage plan to obtain additional coverage of the Medicare out-of-pocket amounts. To accommodate Mr. Bradley's wishes, his broker should help Mr. Bradley explore private fee-for-service plans that do not include Part D and medical savings accounts. Covered drugs. Part D plans cover prescription drugs, biologics. Biologics are drugs made from natural sources, human, animal, or microorganism that are not chemically synesthetized. Examples include allergy shots and gene therapies. Part D plans covers insulin. Part D plans cover medical supplies associated with the injection of insulin, such as syringes, needles, alcohol swabs, and gauze, or delivering insulin into the body, an inhalation chamber. Vaccines are not covered by Part B. There are some drugs that are excluded from Medicare Part D coverage. The following are excluded from the definition of Part D covered drugs. Drugs for weight loss or gain, fertility, cosmetic purposes, symptomatic relief of cough and colds, vitamins, prescriptions, vitamins, and minerals, with the exceptions of prenatal vitamins and fluoride preparations for certain uncommon vitamin D analogs. Vitamins D2 and D3 are excluded from the Part D coverage. Medical foods formulated to be consumed or administered internally under the supervision of a physician that are not regulated as drugs under Section 505 of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act are not covered. Erectile dysfunction drugs, when used for sexual dysfunction, is not covered. Non-prescription drugs are not covered. Some off-label use drugs are not covered. Drugs covered under Part A and B, even if an individual does not have such coverage, are not covered under Part D. Part D plans are permitted to offer supplemental benefits that cover drugs that otherwise meet the definition of a Part D prescription drug, but are explicitly excluded from coverage, such as certain prescribed weight loss drugs. Plan D generally do not cover all drugs available in each category of Part D covered drugs because in some cases, several similar drugs are available to treat the same medical condition. Part D plans include the Part D drugs they will cover on a list known as a formulary. Formularies are developed by pharmacists, doctors, and other experts. Part D plan formularies must include at least 2 drugs in each therapeutic category. Generic and brand name drugs must also be included in the formulary. The covered drugs are based on tiers. A common feature of the Part D benefit structure and formularies is cost-sharing tiers. Tiered cost sharing means grouping Part D drugs into different cost sharing levels within a Part D sponsor's formulary. Many plans group drugs into 3 or 4 tiers, with lower tiers requiring less beneficiary cost sharing than higher tiers. For example, Tier 1 might be generic drugs, Tier 2 preferred brand names, Tier 3 non-preferred brand names, Tier 4 high-cost drugs or specialty drugs. Thus, in evaluating whether a Plan D, Part D plan should be recommended to a beneficiary, it is important to confirm not only that the beneficiary's drugs are on the formulary, but to also evaluate which cost-sharing tier the drugs fall into. Part D standard and alternative benefits. All Part D plans must cover at least the Part D standard benefit or meet the requirements for alternative benefits. Benefit structures that are not standard but instead are actuarially equivalent are known as alternative coverage. The standard benefit structure includes several coverage phases, including a deductible, an initial coverage phase between the deductible and the annual out-of-pocket threshold, a catastrophic coverage phase that applies after the beneficiary reaches the annual out-of-pocket threshold. The standard benefit includes coverage of drugs in 6 protected categories. These 6 protected classes include anticonvulsants, antidepressants, anti-enoplastics, antipsychotics, antiretrovirals, and immunosuppressants. Whew. Big words. Alternative coverage continued. Alternative coverage is prescription drug coverage that is not standard drug coverage, but is at least actuarially equivalent to standard drug coverage. Actuarial equivalent means that the value of the Part D benefits must be at least the same as the standard coverage. Alternative coverage must also not have an annual deductible that exceeds the annual deductible under the standard benefit. It must also impose cost sharing no greater than the standard benefit once the annual out-of-pocket threshold is met. Alternative benefits may also be structured with some or all of the coverage phases that are part of the standard benefit. Some Part D plans may offer enhanced coverage for an additional monthly premium known as enhanced alternative benefits. Coverage enhancements may include, for example, a reduction of the deductible, coverage of excluded drugs, and or a decrease in the beneficiary's coinsurance amount. So someone could buy an additional supplemental plan that may improve their cost sharing in the prescription drug plan. This is the standard Part D benefit for 2025. Now, that doesn't mean that this is what you're going to see from the carriers, but as you just heard, everyone's prescription drug benefit, whether it be a standalone prescription drug benefit or a prescription drug benefit that's in another medical plan, Medicare plan, they must meet or be better than this standard Part D benefit. So for 2025, the standard benefit requires that the beneficiary pays 25% of prescription drug costs during the initial coverage phase. A deductible of $590. Once the beneficiary out-of-pocket cost reaches a total of $2,000, the beneficiary is through the initial coverage phase and reaches the catastrophic coverage. The out-of-pocket costs that count towards reaching catastrophic limit are known as true out-of-pocket cost or TROOP. In some instances, amounts not directly paid by the beneficiary also count towards the true out-of-pocket cost. After reaching the annual out-of-pocket threshold, the beneficiary pays nothing. So be sure that you study what the changes are for 2025. The standard benefit plan in a chart scenario looks like this. Starting from the bottom and moving up. First, you got the deductible. So whatever the plan deductible is, the enrollee pays 100% of that deductible before they go into the initial coverage phase. When they're in the initial coverage stage, after a maximum of $590 deductible, if it's applicable to the plan that you're offering, the enrollee pays 25% of the prescription drug costs, or in most cases, you're going to see copays. When the beneficiary's out-of-pocket costs between the deductible and the initial coverage stages reaches $2,000, they're in the catastrophic coverage stage, where now the enrollee pays no more covered prescription drug costs. Special cost savings for insulin and vaccines. There is no cost sharing for Part D adult vaccines recommended by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, even in the deductible phase. This includes, but is not limited to, vaccines for shingles, tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis for whooping cough, hepatitis A. The cost sharing for a 1-month supply of a covered insulin product cannot be more than $35 in any coverage phase. Let's talk a little bit more about the true out-of-pocket cost. TROOP, TROOP. Okay. Part D, true out-of-pocket costs or TROOP are out-of-pocket costs that counts towards the annual out-of-pocket threshold to move into the catastrophic coverage phase. So it's that $2,000 that can be met in the deductible phase or in the initial phase. So let's look at what counts. The true out-of-pocket cost is calculated on an annual basis. Generally, the TROOP includes beneficiary payments for Part D prescription drugs, including the annual deductible and cost sharing above the deductible up to the annual out-of-pocket threshold. Generally, for drug costs to count towards the true out-of-pocket costs, drugs must be on the plan's formulary and be purchased at the Part D plan's participating network pharmacy. The following also counts towards the TROOP. Amounts paid are borne by the AIDS Drug Assistance Program and the Indian Health Service. Amounts paid by or through qualified state pharmaceutical assistance programs, most charities, health savings accounts, flexible spending accounts, and medical savings accounts. Supplemental Part D coverage provided by enhanced alternative Part D plans and other health insurance. This includes supplemental coverage provided by employer group waiver plans, as well as Medicare plan reductions in cost sharing for enrolled beneficiaries, such as reductions by Medicare Medicaid plans and DSNPs. A Medicare prescription payment plan participants' true eligibility costs that are paid by their Part D plan under the Medicare prescription payment plan. Mr. Bingham takes several formulary drugs, which have a total cost of $2,000 per year. He uses a health reimbursement arrangement funded by his employer to pay his deductible and cost sharing. No costs that Mr. Bingham pays for with HRA funds count towards his true out-of-pocket expense. Mr. Howard has acid reflux. Ms. Howard, to address it, she has been taking a formulary drug provided by a network pharmacy and an over-the-counter medication. Only the amount Ms. Howard pays for the formulary drug counts towards her troop. True out-of-pocket Part D pharmacy networks. Part D coverage is generally provided through contracted pharmacies, network pharmacies, in the Part D plan service area, except that private fee-for-service plans are not required to use a pharmacy network, but may voluntarily choose to have one. Network pharmacies include retail pharmacies, long-term care pharmacies, and may also include mail-order pharmacies. Within their networks, Part D plans may designate some pharmacies as preferred pharmacies that offer lower levels of cost sharing, preferred cost sharing, than apply at other network pharmacies, standard cost sharing. Enrollees are generally required to fill prescriptions for covered drugs at network pharmacies. Under certain circumstances, enrollees may fill prescriptions for covered drugs at out-of-network, non-network pharmacies, but possibly at a higher cost to the enrollee. For example, if the enrollee has an illness or loses a drug while traveling outside of the service area, or if the circumstances result in limited drug access during and through an in-network pharmacy. So 2 examples of when prescriptions might be filled in a non-network or out-of-network pharmacy. Part D premiums and late enrollment penalties. Part D plans may charge a premium. Typically, a higher premium means lower out-of-pocket costs for the plan. Part D enrollees have 3 options for paying their Part D premium: an automatic electronic monthly mechanism, such as withdrawal from their checking or savings bank account, or automatic charge against a credit or debit card; direct monthly billing from the plan; automatic deduction from their Social Security check. Social Security typically takes 2 to 3 months to catch up to withholding, either starting it or stopping it. With withholding, when the withholding begins, it will be for the 2 to 3 months of premiums that are already owed. So they'll adjust. Generally, the beneficiary must stay with the premium payment option they choose for the entire year. If an enrollee does not choose an option, the beneficiary will be billed by the Part D plan monthly. Part D premiums and late enrollment penalties. Non-Medicare insurers are required to notify beneficiaries annually whether or not the prescription drug coverage they have is creditable. Coverage that expects to pay on average at least as much as Medicare's standard Part D coverage expects to pay. Beneficiaries may have to pay a monthly premium penalty to join a Part D plan if they do not have credible coverage and do not enroll when they are first eligible for Part D, or they have been at least 63, there has been at least 63 continuous days following a beneficiary's initial enrollment period for Part D, during which the beneficiary did not have either Part D or other credible coverage. The late penalty will be 1% of the national average beneficiary premium for each month the beneficiary did not have Part D or credible coverage. In general, the penalty is in effect for as long as the beneficiary has a Medicare prescription drug plan. Beneficiaries who qualify for low-income subsidy are not subject to the enrollment penalty. Late enrollment penalty examples. Mr. Russell did not sign up for Part D when he first became eligible because, as an active employee, he had credible coverage through his employer. Mr. Russell retired 6 months ago. His employer does not offer retiree coverage, and he has not signed up for Part D. It is the annual election period, and Mr. Russell seeks to enroll in a Part D plan effective January 1. He is not eligible for a low-income subsidy. Mr. Russell will pay a premium penalty of 1% for each month he is without credible coverage. Ms. Smith did not sign up for Part D when she first became eligible and has not had credible coverage. She's been paying out of pocket for her drugs for the past 3 years, but can no longer afford them. She now wishes to enroll in a Part D plan. Her agent asks Ms. Smith about her income and determines that Ms. Smith is likely to qualify for low-income subsidy. The agent helps Ms. Smith apply for low-income subsidy and advises her that if her application is approved, she will avoid what would otherwise be a substantial late enrollment penalty. That would have been 36 months, 3 years, 36 months. Part D, management tools and formulary requirements. In addition to formularies and cost-sharing tiers, Part D plan uses a variety of prescription drug benefit management tools, including step therapy, which requires enrollees to try one or more similar lower-cost drugs before other costlier drugs are covered, if necessary. Prior authorization requires the doctor to contact the plan and request authorization before the plan will cover the prescription drug. The doctor must show the plan that the drug is medically necessary for it to be covered. Quantity limits. For safety and cost reasons, Part D sponsors may limit the amount of certain prescription drugs they cover over a specified time period. Substitution. Part D sponsors may substitute generic drugs for brand name drugs if the generic drugs have the same or lower cost sharing and certain conditions are met. Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act program, CARA, plans may impose certain limitations on the prescribers or pharmacies a beneficiary can use to manage utilization for beneficiaries who are at risk of misusing or abusing frequently abused drugs such as opioids. Part D transition requirements. Part D sponsors must provide coverage of at least a 1-month fill, unless the lower amount was prescribed, of non-formulary drugs to the following individuals prescribed a non-formulary drug, including Part D drugs that are on a sponsor's formulary but require prior authorization, step therapy, or are subject to a quantity limit that is not safety-based. Beneficiaries initially enrolling in Part D must get a 1-month supply or less if the prescription calls for less, if the drug is not on the formulary. Beneficiaries switching from one plan to the other should get a 1-month fill or less if the prescription is less. Current enrollees affected by formulary changes other than allowable substitutes of a generic drug for a brand name drug. So sometimes insurers will change the formulary. If that happens and someone's in the midst of treatment, they're entitled to that 1 month. Current enrollees experience a level of care change if the Part D sponsor is notified of the change before or at the time of the request for the fill. Beneficiaries eligible for transition fills must receive coverage of at least 1 month fill. Am I on the same one? 1 month fill, unless a lower amount was prescribed of their non-formulary drugs during the first 90 days after their enrollment, the plan switch, or the formulary change. To the extent that a current enrollee is a long-term care setting is outside their 90-day transition period, the sponsor must still provide a 1-month supply of non-formulary Part D drugs while an exception or prior authorization request is being processed. During the transition period, in the Part D plan does not apply prior authorization, non-safety-based quantity limits, or step therapy rules. The enrollee and their physician can request an exception to the Part D's plan formulary to continue coverage of the non-formulary drug, or can transition to a formulary drug. New for 2025. This is where you may want to take some notes. This is the Medicare Prescription Payment Plan, number 1 of 3. Beginning in 2025, Part D sponsors are required to provide all Part D enrollees the option to pay their cost-sharing amounts, including any deductibles, co-pays, or coinsurance, in monthly amounts spread out over the plan year, instead of paying them in full at the point of service, such as at the pharmacy. Part D enrollees can opt into the Medicare Prescription Payment Plan, called the program, at the beginning of the year or at any point during the year. Part D enrollees who choose to participate in the program pay nothing at the point of service for a Part D covered drug, but are billed monthly by their Part D plan. Monthly payments do not start until the beneficiary opts into the program and first incurs out-of-pocket costs for covered Part D drugs. The amount that the Part D sponsor bills the enrollee for a month under the program cannot exceed a maximum monthly cap calculated based on each enrollee's cost and the point in the plan year in which they enrolled in the program. The monthly cap varies from month to month. Opting into the program will not impact how a Part D enrollee moves through the phases of the Part D benefit. They will still have the deductible, they'll still have the initial coverage period. Catastrophic coverage, it ends now, or what counts towards their out-of-pocket costs will still be the same, but they can pay that maximum on a monthly basis. That's brand new. The Medicare Prescription Drug Plan 2, this is part 2 of 3. The program is intended to allow beneficiaries to spread out their cost-sharing obligations throughout the plan year. While this program is available to any Part D enrollee, those incurring high out-of-pocket costs early in the plan year are generally more likely to benefit. Part D enrollees with low to moderate recurring out-of-pocket drug costs, maintenance drugs whose annual costs are not expected to exceed the out-of-pocket threshold, are not likely to benefit from the Medicare Prescription Payment Plan because their costs are already distributed evenly throughout the year. Medicare Prescription Payment Plan 3 of 3. Enrollees can opt out of the program at any time. However, they will continue to be billed monthly for any cost-sharing amounts still owed. Failure to pay the monthly billed amounts will result in disenrollment from the program, but not the plan. After a specified grace period, however, the Part D sponsor will continue to bill amounts owed under the plan in monthly amounts. The sponsor may also offer the beneficiary the option to repay the full outstanding amount in a lump sum. Once a beneficiary leaves the program, they must resume paying their own out-of-pocket costs sharing at the point of service. Enrollee rights. Part D plan sponsors must provide access via a secure website or secure email address on the website for enrollees to quickly request a determination of whether the plan will cover a drug, a coverage determination, or appeal a coverage decision. Enrollees may appeal coverage determinations, decision on exceptions, or requests concerning tiering or formularies. Plan sponsors must also require network pharmacies to provide enrollees with a printed notice with the plan's toll-free number and website for requesting determination. Enrollees have the right to request coverage of a drug that is not on the plan, the Part D plan's formulary, or to request an exception from plan rules such as prior authorization, step therapy, or quantity limits. Such request is known as formulary exception requests. Enrollees also have a right to request coverage of formulary drugs at a less costly formulary tier. This is known as a tier exception. Exception requests must be accompanied by a supporting statement by a physician or other prescriber explaining why the exception is necessary. A standard form is available on Part D plan websites for enrollees to request a coverage determination, including a formulary or tiering exception. A physician or other prescriber may also request a tiering or formulary exception. Part D assistance programs. If a beneficiary has limited income and resources, they may qualify for low-income subsidy, LIS, to cover all or part of the Part D plan premium and cost sharing. To qualify for LIS in 2024, beneficiary income may not exceed 150% of the federal poverty level. The 150% varies geographically. In addition, beneficiary resources may not exceed the published limit. The resources counted towards the limit include bank accounts, stocks, bonds, other liquid resources that beneficiaries may readily convert to cash within 20 days, real estate that is not the beneficiary's primary residence. Based on 2024 federal poverty levels, income limits are as follows. 48 states and DC, it's $22,590 individual, $30,660 couple. For Alaska, it's $28,215 individual, $38,310 couple, and Hawaii is $25,965 individual, $35,250 couple. CMS publishes the resource limits for each year in the late fall of the previous year. For 2024, beneficiaries' resources may not exceed $15,720 individual or $31,360 couple. These limits are increased by $1,500 per person if the beneficiary notifies the Social Security Administration that they expect to use some of their resources for burial expenses. Individuals with limited income. For 2025, individuals who qualify for full LIS and are full benefit dual eligibles with income at or below 100% of the federal poverty level and resources below the applicable threshold have a zero deductible and cost sharing of maximum up to the out-of-pocket threshold of $1.60 for generic drugs, $4.80 for other drugs. For 2025, individuals who qualify for full LIS and the full benefit dual eligibles with income over 100% and resources below the applicable threshold have a zero deductible and cost sharing of $4.90 for generics and $12.15 for other drugs. Other help for low-income pharmaceutical assistance programs. Some pharmaceutical manufacturers operate programs that assist low-income individuals in obtaining drugs at reduced or no cost. Some states have assistance programs designed specifically for their residents. Some programs are qualified state pharmaceutical assistance programs, or SAPs, that count towards the TROOP, and some do not count towards the true out-of-pocket costs. Becoming familiar with your state's program may allow you to help a beneficiary address cost sharing for prescriptions. Encourage people to apply to the state Medicaid office Beneficiaries with limited income and resources should be encouraged to apply for the low-income subsidy, also called extra help, through the state Medicaid office or the Social Security Administration. Beneficiaries may apply at any time. If beneficiaries apply to the state Medicaid office for Part D help, the state Medicare office will also check for eligibility for other low-income assistance programs. They may also call the Social Security Administration or apply online at secure.ssa.gov/I-1020/start to apply for help with Part D costs. After Social Security Administration or the state approves an application for extra help, it is effective the first day of the month in which the individual applied. There are certain individuals who automatically qualify for extra help. They have Medicare and they meet any of these conditions. They have full Medicaid. They get help from the state Medicaid program paying their Part B premium in a Medicare savings program. They get supplemental security income, SSI benefits. So those people automatically qualify for extra help with their prescription drugs. Medicare mails these individuals a purple letter to let them know they automatically qualify. So you can ask, have you received a purple letter? They should keep this letter for their records. They do not need to apply for extra help if they get a purple letter. Part D and other coverage. Employer union coverage. Employers and unions may notify their employees of whether their non-Medicare prescription drug coverage is credible. That's coverage that on average covers at least as much as the Medicare standard Part D plan. They must get an annual statement. If coverage is credible and a beneficiary keeps it, the beneficiary will not incur a premium penalty if later they lose or drop the employer coverage and joins a Part D plan. If coverage is not credible, the beneficiary will need to enroll in a Medicare Part D plan during their initial eligibility period to avoid the late enrollment penalty. If a beneficiary has credible drug coverage through TRICARE, the VA, or the federal health plan, they can compare that coverage with available Part D plans to decide whether to enroll in Part D. They can also ask the employer, the federal plan, because there are different federal plans, if it is credible so that they know. The beneficiary should check with the employer or union benefits administrator before making changes to their employer or union plan. If a beneficiary drops employer union prescription drug coverage, they may not be able to get it back and may also lose health coverage. There will be no late enrollment penalty if the beneficiary retires or otherwise loses employer union credible coverage and joins a Medicare Part D plan. When a Medicare beneficiary becomes eligible for Medicare, then Medicare, instead of Medicaid, covers the Part D drugs once the beneficiary is enrolled in a Part D plan. If Medicaid beneficiaries don't choose a plan, Medicare will choose one for them. Here's where more information is available about prescription drug plans. Of course, you have Medicare.gov, you have the Medicare and You Handbook, and you have your guide to Medicare prescription drug coverage, which is a publication that's put out by the Medicare Department. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?